Network. The whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove them.
Hello, I'm Angel Harper from Hollywood, California. I'm an actress, a voice actress, and a studio teacher. I was just interviewed by Keith Andrew, and I had a fantastic conversation with him. I want to recommend that if he contacts you and say, hey, come on my show, that you say yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Keith Andrew Network. It is 994. That is right, 994. The following is brought to you by 1994. As I mentioned in my last interview, 93. Our guest was a little too young to know what 93 was. But for you, I know we're in the same age range, so I want to know what you were doing in 1994. So the first question I want to ask you is actually, which will have fun with it. Let me ask you this. For people who want to know, why did I start off with the year 1994? After doing this 900, and I'm not doing this to the day I die, but doing this 994 times, I'm always finding a way to change the opening question. Because I always ask our last interview and go back. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself. Next episode. Tell our audience a little about yourself. Next episode. Tell our audience a little. Unless I wanted to be a parrot, I really need to change it up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, do you want me to tell you a little bit about myself? Is that what you wanted to know, Keith?
Absolutely. But I do want to ask you is, with everything that you accomplished, and I'm going to ask you this question later on, have you ever lived near or had any neighbors that were celebrities?
Neighbors? No. They weren't close neighbors, but people that lived in my neighborhood, yeah. But they weren't my neighbors wait a minute. I don't know if you would consider him a celebrity, but he was in a notable film, Coming to America, and he played the valet to the king. So he was a neighbor of mine, and he lives in my building. Yeah. So he's not a famous celebrity, but he was in a famous movie. Does that count?
No, hey, you're on a big screen. Did that really put a cap in your feather, right?
Yeah, I think so. He's a wonderful gentleman also.
No, absolutely. And if you're still in touch with him, I would love to have him on the show.
I'll ask him.
The reason I bring it up is because I know people who have, I have a famous, you mentioned Whoopi Goldberg. I know, hypothetically, I know someone who lived next to Whoopi Goldberg, and he said she was a horrible neighbor. So I was like, wouldn't it be a fun question to ask? Have you ever lived next to celebrities?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is a fun question. But no, I haven't lived next door to a celebrity at all. I worked on a movie. As a matter of fact, I'm remembering things a lot better. So you might want to edit that other piece out. In 1994, I was here in Los Angeles. I had moved from Washington, D.C., where I had been doing a lot of film and television along with my job at WHUR radio. So I had two careers going at the same time. And I moved out here in Los Angeles, and I started doing a lot of animation work at that time. So I started doing voiceover acting that we talked about a little bit earlier, doing animation work. And I was also doing some television work. So in 1994, I remember it was a very good year because I was doing two things that I love, which is voice animation and on-camera acting.
Well, to be honest, I like both parts, but if you want me to take it out, that's completely up to you.
Yeah, the other part was a little messy.
No
Okay.
problem. So the first question I want to ask you is, you mentioned voiceovers. Who were some of your favorite characters that you actually voiced over?
Oh, well, I was in Rugrats and I had a chance to do not the main characters, but several different characters that interacted with the main character. And so it's memorable to me because they also gave me an original art cell from the movie that I have hanging on my wall. And it's a memorable moment in working in the industry of animation.
What year were, so are you talking about like season one, season two, or are you talking about
Oh,
later on?
so yeah, that's what I'm saying. This was Rugrats the movie that I'm talking about because they made a Rugrats movie.
Oh, I
And I
think that,
was, yeah, I was
go
in the
ahead, I'm
Rugrats
sorry.
movie. Yeah.
I think that movie came about like 96, 97.
Oh, see, your memory's a lot better than mine. So, yeah, so it wasn't 1994, okay?
No.
But yeah, that's a memorable moment for me in working in the animation industry. And currently, I'm doing some dubbing work. Yeah, I have an NDA, so I can't talk about the
Right.
actual project. But for those of you who are familiar with dubbing work, I'm translating from another language, let's say Korean, to English, a very popular television series. And so I'm very excited about, working on that project right now because it involves a lot of acting, but also a lot of strong voice work is needed as well, and matching the sound and the actual movements of the mouth with the character that's on the film. So
No,
it's challenging but fun.
for an example for our audience, it's kind of like, oh, those, I like them, but they're really bad looking back at it. On those Godzilla movies where the
Oh,
voice doesn't match up to the lips.
I think you know what I'm doing now. Yes, it's called dubbing work. Yeah, but I hope it's gotten better, and I hope I'm a part of what makes it better with what I'm doing. So yeah.
And that's the same with, I think, not, they didn't really take the same dialogue as Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but they took Japanese scenes and they turn it into American lives. So
Yes.
I wouldn't say, maybe they did some dubbing. I'm not really sure. All I know was Power
Hmm.
Rangers came from Japan and they had to translate it from Japanese to American.
Yeah,
And that's
and
all I know.
that's called dubbing. That's dubbing work. Hmm.
Personally, I liked the Godzilla films. They were kind of
I did too.
cartoony and bad, but it was funny.
I don't know anybody who doesn't enjoy Godzilla, especially the old versions.
No, absolutely. Actually, you bring up a good point. Speaking about Godzilla, what were
Mm.
some of your favorite companies that you worked with? Have you worked with Lionsgate? You mentioned you worked with Nickelodeon. What was that like?
Oh yeah. Well, when you do these projects, it's not like I'm working with the company. I'm working for the company and I go to a set or studio and I do the work. So, being that I wasn't the star of the show, it's more like going to work, doing the job, enjoying what you do, and contributing to a wonderful, outcome of the project. Mhm.
No, I agree. Well, let me ask you, for people with disabilities, how
Mm.
can they follow in your footsteps?
That's such a good question. And what I'm really happy about is now we see in the industry, the entertainment industry, a lot more open arms to people with disabilities. I'm sure you've noticed on several shows, not only hearing impaired, but the blind, people with autism, the good doctor. Oh my gosh, the good doctor. He's autistic. And it's a wonderful show that shows someone on the spectrum that is functioning at a high level and saving lives. Actually, he's a doctor saving lives. So, actually, I think if this is something you feel passionate about, that you want to do, you want to be a performer, you want to be in the entertainment industry, there's no reason, especially these days, not to go after it because they're looking for more diversity now And it's happening. Grey's Anatomy, did you see that there's been, I don't know for anyone out there who watches it, but there's a character on there who's gotten a wonderful role and she's deaf. And she's got a major role on Grey's Anatomy. She's been on for the whole year that I've seen it. So I think everything is opened up. It's got to be a passion of yours to really perform, because whether you have a disability or not, it's a very difficult industry to gain opportunities in, because you got to be the right person for the right role at the right time with the right talent. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying, oh, I have a disability. What can I do to get into this business? You got to dedicate yourself to actually learning the business, and it is a business, and having the talent for the business, which means acting school if you haven't had any training. So you just have to know how passionate you are about anything, and then keep at it like you have been doing. You have been, how many shows? Okay. You're passionate about what you're doing, right?
Yeah, I've been doing this for 10 years.
You're passionate about what you're doing. So that's the kind of passion that anyone needs, whether you have a disability or not. You just got to say, I really want to be an entertainer. I really want to be a talk show host, and keep at it.
I'm going to ask you next question, and I'm just going to ask you a hard-hitting question, and you can throw it back at me. You can ask me anything you want. First question I want to ask you is, have you ever been discriminated?
I'm going to say back in the day, it was more overt. At this point, I can't tell you a situation in the entertainment industry where I felt, as a person of color, it was overtly done to me. Okay. So I don't have any horror stories about that. I'm sure that I didn't get some jobs because of the color of my skin or my age or something like that. But no one's saying it out loud because they already know the consequences of that. So.
And I didn't mean in post, but I do like asking hard-hitting questions. And if you want to ask me anything, I have no cards up my sleeve. The reason I ask is because I too fall under the category of being discriminated and being sized up. Well, the stupid expression is you have 10 seconds to make an impression on somebody, because in the first 10
well, that's a true expression, Keith. You really do.
No, yeah.
Whether you have a disability or not. I mean, I walk into a room, they've already basically decided, yep, we're going to hire her, or nope, she's not the one for us. So it's a first impression. I haven't even opened my mouth to show them what I can do. But people have their biases.
You're absolutely right. I went for a job interview, and the person, I know she wasn't really highly intelligent because she was, the way she was sitting, she was kind of like, like one of those people. And I was like, well, I can size you up, and because you're an asshole. And she just turned around in her chair. He's like, I know right away by looking at her expression, you have your mind made up, and it doesn't matter if I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face. You made up your mind and saying you're not going to hire them. And of course they didn't. But,
And it was their loss, remember that.
No, I agree. And what about this expression? You probably heard this one before. Why you want to work here? This is beneath you.
Oh my gosh, why do you want? Well, some of that happened to me. I went to a very nice school. I went to Cornell University, and because I went to Cornell and I came out here doing my acting stuff, I was going to look for a waiter's job or something like that. And they looked at my resume and they saw I had like a great school, and they also saw that I had worked in the broadcast industry as an executive salesperson. And they were like, you want to be a what? So I didn't talk them into taking me as a waitress. And so I gave up the idea of doing that, and I became a teacher instead. And that's how I make my extra money.
Well, you mentioned two good points that I want to talk to you about. Now, with disabilities and everything, you are an acting teacher. Voiceover
Yeah.
teacher. Sorry. Actually, are you both acting teachers as well?
No, I'm an actress and a voiceover talent, and that's what I do for me. And I am an actual credentialed teacher. I used to teach in the classroom. As for 12 years, I taught in the classroom at LAUSD. So when I decided to leave in 2019, I decided to transfer the skills that I had in the classroom to the studio and to the production set. And that title is called studio teacher. So if you're a studio teacher, you're on the set with any child that's between zero, that means a baby, between 0 and 18 years old. And you're there to not only help them with their schoolwork, but you're also there for their welfare to make sure that nothing lewd or crude or bad is happening to them on the set, you know? So I'm a studio teacher as my part-time job, in addition to acting.
No, I was going to clarify that, but he did a better job than I did.
Oh, well, I hope everybody understands, because it's a career that a lot of people are not aware of that happens when you're doing a television or film production, or even if you're just doing a print job, that any job where there's a child involved under the age of 18, a studio teacher must be present. And that's a mandate from the Department of Labor. So I actually work for the Department of Labor.
So with that being said, with all those many years that you worked as a teacher, you well, I want to say should have, because I don't want to say you should have worked with this person or that person. You probably worked with people with disabilities.
Oh my
Or,
goodness, yeah. Part of my job as a classroom teacher is to help identify a child that may have a learning disability or a speech disability, a hearing disability, seeing it. I have that responsibility as a classroom teacher to help identify that, something that sometimes parents miss because they're with us most of the day. And as they're learning and interacting with other children, we might notice certain things that help us understand that they might need extra help. And so whenever that happens, as a classroom teacher, I have to make a recommendation during a parent conference. When they come in for the parent-teacher conference, I might say, I've noticed some things that I think you should be aware of, and I'd like to recommend that you take your child to one of these centers that actually evaluates the child, because I can't evaluate a child. I only know some signs of things that may make me feel that the child needs extra help. And then they call it special ed, and nobody likes the term special ed. And then they change the title to something else. They keep changing the title, but what it is a child that needs extra support in their learning. And it also means that we're giving the child the attention that they need so they can succeed.
I'm trying to keep a straight face, but he does remind me of a funny joke. There's this disabled comedian. It says it makes me nervous when they say special this, special education, special this, special that. Now I'm kind of concerned about special forces.
That's a good joke. Special forces. I wonder if they're okay. Okay. They might need a studio teacher to look after them.
I remembered. Actually, let me ask you: do you have any funny stories you like to share? And what were you doing during Hurricane Sandy?
Oh my God, Hurricane Sandy! I don't remember Hurricane Sandy. I don't even remember what year it was. I remember
2012.
Okay, yeah, Hurricane Sandy. We have to come back to that. Okay,
Right.
But well, I just think that one of the things that happened to me as a classroom teacher, I was transferring from being an actress to coming into the classroom. And I remembered how things were when I was in the classroom. And of course, it was not like that anymore. And one of the things that I found quite endearing when I had to teach fifth grade, we had a Valentine's Day poem I asked the kids to write for their loved one, their mom, their aunt. You know, I'm thinking stuff like that. So I was going around and I was checking, everyone's work. And I said, oh, what a lovely poem. Who's that going to be for? And the little boy went like this. He was like, for her. I just thought that was, to me, that was endearing, because I said, does it start at 5th grade? I thought it was, wasn't that 7th or 8th grade? So I was like way out of my element. It starts, I guess, at 5th grade. And I just thought that was charming, that it stayed in my mind.
For me, for Hurricane, I can't talk. Sorry. During Hurricane Sandy, we went 14 days without power.
Oh, wow.
And it was 14 days. What happened like October 28th, and we came back like a couple days before Thanksgiving. And I remembered we went to hotel to hotel. And my mom's a little snobby, so we went from a motel to a hotel. And I remember there's a difference, because I really didn't care. A roof over your head, you had heat, you had a place to go. Better that than staying at home where it was 20 below and the house was freezing. So what you gotta do? You gotta stay in the house, or you gotta go to a motel. That doesn't make a difference.
Oh,
But
my God.
I remember I was at the Holiday Inn, and I called Orange and Rockland, because every day when you called Orange and Rockland, they will give you a different story. So I finally got a live person on the phone, and I said, "Oh, well, the power pole up top of the road where I live was snapped in half. Yeah, we know, and we're gonna have a specialized team come over." And I said, that's why my dad can't take me anywhere, because I have diarrhea of the mouth. I said, now, when you mean special, oh my God, it's like, oh my God, hang up the phone. When you mean special, you mean it's one person's got to hold the pole and the other one's got to say, oh, I fixed it.
You're too funny. Okay, that's funny. I don't remember what I was doing for Hurricane Sandy. I'm sorry. But I survived it. How about that? I survived. And I don't remember floating down any place, floating down the street or anything like that. So I'm okay. I remember surviving Hurricane Sandy. Let's put it that way.
Well, being in central New York, being surrounded by the mountains, you always want to live near the ocean, except for when you have a big ass storm, and then you kind of wish you were in the mountains. But being in the mountains, you're theoretically, hypothetically, whatever the hell you want to say, theoretically, hypothetically safe. But let me ask you, do you believe in, and you can pass on this if you want, was climate change and global warming? I've been living in my area for almost 35 years. My family, 36. We've never gotten tornadoes before. We never gotten hurricanes before. Now we do. Perfect example of climate change, the sharks, being close to Long Island. What is your opinion about that?
Well, I have very strong opinions about climate change. And even though I won't be here when the worst of it happens, because of age, I know I won't be around. But I would say 30 years from now, there's going to be some major problems if they don't turn things around. And it's up to the youth of our world to take that mantle and run with it, because climate has changed. I'm living in California. Give you a good example. I'm living in California. When I came out here, I had 3 coats with me because I'm from New York. When I came out here, I had to get rid of those coats. I didn't need it in my closet, didn't need it at all. Now I need a coat. Now we have heavy rains. I need rain boots and a raincoat. I need things that I never needed before when I came out here. The climate has definitely changed. And we have to deal with the fact that we're not doing what we need to do to keep it under control.
It's funny, but it's not funny. Yesterday, we probably hear different stories of people who lived in the Northeast. We actually had a slight thunderstorm, a tiny thunderstorm. Everyone thought it was a bright flash of lightning. And some people think it was a UFO. Some people are like, what the hell is that? What's up and explode? And the next thing you know, you heard boom. Now, thunder snow isn't unusual for this type of year. Usually February, March, if for the cold front going through, you're going to get,
Right.
thunder snow. But it's with climate change, and it's January, and it was almost 50 or 60 degrees.
Well, the thing
So
about it is in California, that for having 40-degree weather all the time, that was unheard of. Not anymore. The weather has changed.
yeah,
And it's changed here in California.
my brother always talked about going to California. Let me ask you this, and then I'm gonna pass it over to you. On a scale 1 to 10, how frequently, unusual or frequently, and I'm probably busting out words, so I'm not gonna say it again. How frequently do you get earthquakes?
Well, thankfully you asked me that too, because I have a hard time people coming out here just to visit because they go, well, you got those earthquakes. I go, I haven't had an earthquake out here and I don't know how long. And when they do happen, it's on a minor scale. And I don't live near the epicenter where the problem is. So they make an announcement of an earthquake, but I live in Hollywood and I'm not experiencing it. And many of the buildings now have this foundation where the foundation shakes with it. So a lot of buildings are even being built now to have the foundation, so the building kind of moves with the earth. I don't know what it's called technically, but I do know that that's part of what a lot of new buildings are doing. So I had one big earthquake that, kind of shook and took out the lights. I think that was back in 2012 or something like that. But even then, I didn't experience any tragedy. Nothing in my house was broken. The lights went out, but nothing in my house was broken. I was unharmed. And here, if you want the laugh, I slept through it. I woke up. I woke up and people, how you wake up to go to the bathroom and you couldn't turn on anything and people were knocking on the door saying, get out of the building. And I didn't get out of the building. I went back to sleep. So I don't have a fear of earthquakes. I'm sure a big one is coming, hopefully not in my time, but I have no fear of earthquakes and I've lived here for a very long time. So no.
I can relate to that story because 1997, we had a very first, for me anyway, it was our first tornado. Me and my mom and my 4 brothers and my sister and her boyfriend were all, scared shitless. Well, what's that noise? What's happening over there? Well, what is that? My dad, fast asleep. And the house was shaking, the flats and widened. It didn't matter because he slept right through it. Now, wrapping up on the Keith Andrew Network, how can our fans and listeners get in touch with you?
Oh, I'd love them to connect with me on Instagram. And it's really easy. I am Angel Harper. If you go to I am Angel Harper, that's my Instagram. And I'm on TikTok a bit, and it's Angel Harper VO, Angel Harper VO. So I think Instagram and TikTok is a good way to do it. Of course, I'm on Facebook, but it's just family friendly stuff.
No, absolutely. Now, wrapping up our show, I want to ask you just one question. Now, I want you to be completely brutally honest. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what made you say yes? How do you feel now? And would you recommend it to other people?
Oh, I didn't know you, but I did read your profile and I thought your profile was interesting. And I think that a lot of people are trying to experiment with doing podcasts and things like what you're doing. And I said to myself, I want to help this gentleman because I might get something out of it that it's unexpectedly wonderful, which I did. And also because I just believe in supporting people in the arts. And you're an artist and you're creating something wonderful. And you're giving a platform to people like myself to let people know about me and what I'm doing. So I think it's a win-win. And I said, why not?
Plus, you make a new friend out of it. So absolutely.
I hope I made a new friend.
No, I do have a couple questions for you off the air, but if for our fans and listeners who are watching on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, especially YouTube, if you're watching, you have to leave a comment, because I like to know, and our guests would love to know, what you think, how you feel. Do you have ideas for the Keith Andrew Network? Season 11, I downloaded a whole brand new green screen. It's going to be better. Same questions, but it will only get bigger and better over time. But with that being said, to our guests, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. And for us to do a part 2, let's help reach 100 views. Until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you, and have a good night.